The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alan Blumkin. I'm here with my good friend David Nemec on another session of David Nemec's Baseball History and Statistics. Today we're going to be discussing the baseball parks we've been to, major and to a small extent minor leagues. Welcome, David.
Welcome to you, Al. Pleasure to be with you again.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure for me also. Okay. Do you want to start on some of your favorite ballparks?
Well, it's interesting because I was, after we talked about what a probable subject would be, I started realizing I've probably been to more parks than I realized. I think all the way back to my childhood. I went to games, major league games, in 3 different parks in Cleveland, 3 different major league parks. There probably aren't too many now who can say that, but I went to my first game and at the old Cleveland Park.
League Park?
At Old Cleveland League Park.
Wow.
My father took me when I was 4 years old. And all he could tell me was, sit down. You're seeing the New York Yankees and Bill Dickey. Please sit down. And I was all over the place, running around with other kids, and I think it was a Saturday afternoon, and I didn't get much out of the game, to say the least. But I do remember the park and how different it was from my second game, which was 1946, which took place at Cleveland Municipal Stadium, and how huge that stadium was in comparison. Whereas the League Park was more like the kind of parks I played in as a kid, some of which were enclosed. Cleveland Municipal Stadium was like nothing I'd ever seen before. And then my third park, of course, was Jacobs Field, which has since changed names, but I still think of it as Jacobs Field. And I think Cleveland really did a good job with that park when they and then the team revived suddenly out of nowhere after years in the doldrums as soon as they got into that park. But I really, really always thought that was the best park by far of the 3 Cleveland parks I was in.
I was in Municipal, yeah.
Yeah.
The first time I was ever in the Jake was in 1998, and it was so crowded. I think the Yankees were in. It was so crowded that they had constructed temporary stands out in left field, and that's where I wound up.
But this wasn't in the postseason.
No, this was during the season. Yeah.
Yeah, they drew sellout crowds to almost every game, and especially when the Yankees were in town. Yeah, I remember going to a Yankees game at the Jake, and yeah, that was a real treat. I loved watching baseball there when Cleveland finally had a team after years and years, in Municipal Stadium, being part of the crowd of about 7,000 usually when I went there. But I'm glad you enjoyed it too.
I was there several times afterwards. Whether I would go and visit Hal Anderson, he always had had me come out there when the Indians were home. So I saw a few. It was a nice place to watch a game.
It was a nice place, and ironically, the other Ohio Major League team, Cincinnati, I also saw games in 3 Major League parks there. I was in the old Crosley Field. I was in the Army at the time. We got a weekend pass, and the guy who was in my platoon and I went up to Cincinnati and caught the Sunday game on, I think it was early September, against the Milwaukee Braves. And the only time I got to see Hank Aaron play, I don't think I ever saw him play when he against the Mets, which would have been another opportunity. And when I went to Mets games, I don't recall ever seeing the Mets and Braves meet. So that Cincinnati game was probably the only time I ever saw Hank, and actually saw him in person in a game. And Crosley Field was an really interesting park and a fun park to be in. And then I saw a game in the Riverfront Stadium they occupied during Pete Rose's hitting streak in '78. And then, of course, when we were at the convention in Cincinnati, we all went to the new park.
Yeah, so the Gab. Yeah.
Yeah, and I liked their new park a lot. I thought it was a pretty good park.
Yeah, I saw several games there, visiting Al, because he was like an hour and a half north of it. And I was in the Gab. I was visiting him in 2003, and this was the year before the convention was in the Gab. So we went down to the Gab, and we parked in the old parking lot. And what happened was the Gab was on the other side of where Riverfront had stood, and they had blown up Riverfront.
Yeah.
And the rains came down torrential, and nobody could leave because it was, you had to go a couple of miles to get the car. And people were standing there for 3 hours, and finally they started the game, but a lot of people had left because kids had school the next day, and people had to go to work the next day. And the game, Toronto had a pitcher whose name I forget right now, shut them out in under 2 hours.
Wow,
and we were sitting in box seats when the game started because there's nobody left there.
Right. Wow.
But then I saw a few with him over the years. I saw a few games there with him. And we used to go to River. And unfortunately, the first time I went up to Cincinnati, Riverfront had been open for a few weeks, so I missed out on Crosley Field.
Yeah. I was always glad. I was glad that I did get to see a game there. And of course, the other old park that really stands out in my mind that I did get to see, I saw several games actually in Pittsburgh when they were still in Forbes, and that, to my mind, Forbes Field, I would say, was the most enjoyable baseball park I've ever been in. Major League Park, anyway, to watch a game.
I went to Pitt, and the reason I never told my father or mother because they had no interest. My father had no interest in baseball at all, and the reason I wanted to go to Pitt was the proximity of Forbes Field. This is in 1960. So I go there as a freshman in 1960. A friend of mine and I snuck into the ballpark at the top of the ninth inning of the Mazeroski game, so we saw that live. We're 17 years old. What do we know? And we were watching on TV when Smith hit the home run and ran over there and got into the left field bleachers. But I saw tons of games there. After the left field bleachers were $1. If we got ambitious and sat in the grandstand, it was $3. And it was a wonderful place. I saw Henry Aaron there. I saw Stan Musial there. And, the Cardinals came in when they were on that hot streak in 1963, and I saw the one game they lost of the 20 games the 20-game streak they had. They won 19 games, and Bob Veal shut them out in Pittsburgh. And that was, that's the place I saw three. Outside of New York here, that's the other place I saw 3 ballparks. I saw tons of games in Forbes Field. I saw several games in 3 Rivers, which I didn't particularly like. I didn't like any of those circles.
It wasn't a great park at all.
And then I saw one game in 2006 in PNC, which was beautiful. The only problem was they didn't have a team to put in there.
Yeah. I know.
Well, it's a beautiful ballpark. It's too bad the team has basically stunk the last bunch of years.
I know.
But Forbes Field was when anybody puts something on Forbes Field, I'm on the Forbes Field site on Facebook. I said this is my second home next to the dorms when I was in Pittsburgh. And another great thing there is that in the night games they would open the ballpark, the gates in the seventh inning.
Yeah,
one night, me and a friend of mine went over and we opened up in the seventh inning. The game went 16 innings.
I had a similar experience in Los Angeles in 1959 when the Dodgers were playing in the Coliseum. And I was staying in the USC campus, which was walking distance from the Coliseum. And for a week straight, my college roommate and I were out there together. And we would walk over every night in the seventh inning, and Dodgers were playing the Giants. And
wow.
I saw, I think, a 15-inning game that was decided by a Jim Davenport home run into the short left field stands over the screen. And it was a tremendous experience to see games in Los Angeles in that Coliseum. It was such a weirdly constructed park. I never saw anything even close to it among the minor league parks I went to. Right field looked like it was eons away from, I know Duke Snider hated playing in the Dodgers in those years because he could hit nothing out in right field. And Wally Moon, once he developed the moonshot.
His best year was in 1961. And then they went into Dodger Stadium in 1962, and his numbers fell off
tremendously. Yeah,
and he retired after 1965. Growing up in New York, I never made it to Ebbets Field because I was living in Queens. I was 14 years old when they moved to Los Angeles, and my parents wouldn't let me go to Brooklyn to see a game there. They thought it was too dangerous. So my parents took me to my first game in September 1953 at Yankee Stadium. And this is so long ago that Ray Boone was playing third base for the Tigers. And Mantle crushed one into the bleachers off Billy Heft, and the Yankees got, it was 7 runs in the 7th inning and won the game 13-4. But the first time seeing green, because the TV was all black or white.
Yeah.
It was all black and white. You had to see the green field and to see the players live and to listen to Bob Shepard for the first time. I couldn't get over it. And then they took me in '54 to Yankee Stadium for Memorial Day doubleheader against Washington. And '55 they were on the road, so they took me the one time I was in the Polo Grounds. And boy, was that place! You couldn't see half the field if you were, out in the outfield.
I never made it to the Polo Grounds, and never made it to Ebbets, obviously. But I did get to old Yankee Stadium before they revamped the whole thing, and saw a doubleheader there, a Sunday doubleheader. I think it was 1965 against the Indians. And I saw an old-timers game there, actually, a couple of years before, prior to a game of the White Sox, and that was a lot of fun, too. I like the old Yankee Stadium a lot, but
Well, listen to this story. When I went to the Polo Grounds for my 12th birthday, that was the last game I went to with my parents. And with a friend of mine, for several years, we would take a bus and 2 subways up there. Once a year before school started, because in those years I was in summer camp. For this, my parents used to travel. My father used to sell jewelry. So anyway, in 1957, they're playing a doubleheader with the White Sox in Sunday in June. We go up there, and the grandstand line is around the block. So we're 13 years old, 14 years old at the time. So we decided to buy obstructed view behind home plate.
Huh.
And we walked out because the fifth inning of the first game, there was a couple of seats a little bit down in the row behind us that weren't occupied. Nobody ever showed up. But, we were 14 years old on an allowance back then, going from $1.30 to $2.10 is a major decision.
It's amazing, and you could do that then as a kid. I mean, I remember going to games in Cleveland Stadium where, I wouldn't know my way around really. I was a young kid. I took a kid from Nebraska. It was 1948, and he was from Tilden, Nebraska. Richie Ashburn.
Wow.
Yeah, and he wanted to, all he wanted to talk about was Ashburn. We ended up in Cleveland Municipal Stadium, and again a doubleheader against Washington. And we ended up with horrible seats way up in the upper deck in the outfield because it just, the ticket salesman saw two kids who didn't know their way around, gave us these terrible seats, and we just wandered around, and we ended up down behind home plate by the middle of the second game, and nobody stops you. Nobody, if the seat was open, the usher kind of looked the other way usually. You don't see that anymore, and but you don't see batting practice anymore. You don't see infield practice anymore. There's so many things that the old parks, those parks brought you, just going to games in them, and those extra things that kids now don't get the benefit of ever seeing, and they go to a major league game.
Now, a couple of other ones I like. Saw two games in the new Yankee Stadium. I was there before and after the renovation. In fact, I was at the last game in '73 before they shut it down for 2 years. And then I was at the first game in 1976 when they reopened it. And I've seen the 28 World Series games live, and a whole bunch of LCS games and one All-Star game.
You see 28 World Series games?
Yeah. Here, I saw games in '73, 2 games in '86 with the Mets, 1 game in '69. And I saw all the games in '76, '77, and '78 that were here at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah,
after that, because they would sell tickets through the mail. And when they stopped the mail sales, that's when I was going to stand up there for 3 hours waiting for tickets.
Wow, that's amazing.
And in Cincinnati, I saw in Riverfront, I saw 8 World Series games. I saw 2 in 1972 and 4 in 1972 and 2 in 1975. Wow. And Baltimore, it only involved New York, Boston, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. And Baltimore saw 2 games in '69 and 4 games in 1971. I had tickets to the Pirates a few times and Three Rivers, but they forgot to get through the LCSs.
I've only seen 2 postseason games, and that both were in Cleveland Stadium. I saw Municipal Stadium. I saw the first World Series game I ever played there in 1948.
Oh, the Bob
last
Johnny
World Series game ever played there.
Yeah.
In 1954, 6 years apart, which was very demoralizing when I think back. But I saw Gene Bearden paired up against Vern Bickford, and I think Bearden shut him out 2-0. And then I went to the 4th game of the '54 series. Cleveland was down 3-0, and we were sitting in the upper deck in right field, right above Wally Westlake when he dropped a routine fly ball in the later part of the game. By that time, Cleveland was so demoralized, the fans were so demoralized that it was almost laughable when he dropped that fly ball. But everybody could see that.
I walked out of visiting Ballparks 2 years in a row when the visiting team won the game by 1 run, 71 in Baltimore. And because I was thrilled because the Pirates won it, and then 72 in Cincinnati when they lost to the A's. But it was a whole different atmosphere. Everybody, the easiest time I ever had getting out of Yankee Stadium after the renovation was the game that Reggie Jackson hit the 3 home runs in 1977.
You were at that game? Wow.
Yeah. Me and my friend, we just, after it ended, we just walked out because people were running on the field. Nobody was using the escalators or the runways to walk out. They were going crazy. So, and they did that with the Chambliss game when he hit the home run off of Mark Littell.
Mark Littell, yeah.
I've done the podcast with him. He's a terrific guy, and he gave Chambliss. He came out with a book a couple of years ago. He gave Chambliss a couple of pages.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember that reading, or actually, I think when I did the Yankees yearbook one year, I put it in that Chambliss never did touch home plate during the course of the game. He couldn't get to it. He couldn't get to it. The fans were all over the field, but he did come out later after the stadium had cleared and the team had celebrated in the locker room. He came out later with a couple of, I think he even brought an umpire out with him who was still in the stadium and did touch home plate. So if there were ever a question whether he touched home plate after he hit the home run, he would be able to tell the truth and say, yes, I did. As long as he wasn't asked when he did it.
Some of the older ones I liked. I liked the Tiger Stadium.
I loved Tiger Stadium, yeah. And
I liked Milwaukee County. That was a very good place to watch a game. I never made it to Sportsman's Park or the original Busch Stadium in St. Louis.
No.
But I made both parks in Kansas City. We saw a game in the old park in 1972. That's where the A's played, but they were long gone by then. And that was a place the parking around there was so bad that people who lived around that ballpark would charge you $5 to park on their lawns, and you had to take them up on it because there's nowhere else.
Yeah. There's still, Wrigley Field. You go to areas around Wrigley Field, you'll find people selling parking in front of their house or in the driveway or whatever. But you have to walk a little ways, and the parking is very reasonable.
And I saw my first game there at the current stadium in 1973, and one of the locals asked me what I thought of it. I said it would be really terrific if you got rid of the artificial turf, which they eventually did.
Yeah,
that was a really beautiful place. I liked Anaheim, where the Angels play.
I don't live very far from it, and I still have yet to go to an Angels home game.
And I saw 2 games in the old Murphy Stadium in San Diego.
I like that park.
We made the trip in 1973, and then when they had the convention down there in 1993.
Yeah, I think you and I may have gone to that game together.
Yeah,
as I recall, yeah. I like that park a lot. I thought it was a good park.
I saw a few games in '73. We went to, we were on this. Al and I did this trip, and we were out in California. We could only make 4 parks. One of the parks had to go, so we went to the 3 in Southern California: Dodger Stadium, Anaheim, and San Diego. And we went to a couple of games in Oakland. In 1973, Monday night they had half price. This is with the defending world championship team. And they had to, they got 45,000 people. The next day they went back to full price. It was 8,000.
Yeah, I really don't understand why that team never really drew what it should have, because
Yeah,
I
they may
enjoyed
wind up
going to
in
games
Las Vegas.
there.
Yeah.
Compared to Candlestick Park, going to a game in, I would go to the Coliseum every day of the week to avoid going to Candlestick Park. I was out living in San Francisco. I very seldom went to Giants games. I went to a lot of A's games, and I liked the park. You could park. You could find parking around it. You didn't have to pay $10 or $15 to park. And of course, then at that time I was living there. In the early years I was living there, you could watch batting practice. You could watch fielding practice. I love that park. I love going to games there.
When we were in Oakland, we didn't have time to, we had to go back through when we picked up the Astrodome on the way back in Houston, and we went out to Candlestick Park one afternoon before one of the A's games, and they were cleaning it up after an exhibition football game, and the wind was blowing and stuff all over the place.
Yeah.
And then when I went to the Sabre Convention in San Francisco in 1998, the game that they had, Major League game they had, was a night game with out in the Candlestick, and the temperature was about 65 degrees, and the winds were about 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So I sold my ticket, and people came back after it and told me I made the right decision.
Yeah,
I said if I want cold and wind, I can always go to Shea Stadium here.
Yeah, there was an amazing choice of a place to build a park. So it was all political, and the Giants bit into took every wrong bite on the apple in that one, and that was such a stupid place to build a park. There was a book that came out a bunch of years ago. This guy interviewed almost everybody on the '58 Giants, including Willie Mays, and they asked him about Candlestick, and then to a man they said that they should have doubled deck Seal Stadium. Exactly, because And I saw a number of games in the original park in Texas. Because a bunch of years they played in the old minor league park, which was built up somewhat after the Rangers moved there. Yeah, and because my parents lived down there. There's one time this friend of mine came down because he was interested, obsessed with picking up all the major league ballparks at that point, and so. He flies in. We go to a game. We have pull off the. I'm driving. We have pull off the road because it was raining so hard you couldn't see anything. And then you go to the game. You go to the ballpark. It was put off for an hour. By the time the game was halfway through, you never would have known that it rained a drop. Yeah. And the Astrodome, I thought that was in Madison Square Garden. I picked up Denver, and I picked up Phoenix with Sabre trips. Atlanta in 2010, not the current one, but the one what they call Turner Field. Yeah. Yeah, the only southern ballpark I ever went to was in Miami. That was the convention. Oh yeah, that was Joe Robbie Field. Was half the seats was a football stadium. Yeah, it wasn't a very good park for baseball. No, and I like the current St. Louis Park. I actually saw with Al. I saw a game in the old Metropolitan Stadium up in Minneapolis. Minnesota, the first park that the Twins played in. Yeah. What was the best minor league park you ever went to? Oh, I liked San Jose. Actually, a minor league game. I went with my father in the summer of '58.
because he used to sell jewelry through the South and Southwest, so he took me with him for the summer. And I went to a game in Ponce de Leon Park in Atlanta. AA Southern Association game, and the blacks had to sit in the section in right field. It was segregated at that point. The nicest minor league ballpark I ever was in was in San Jose. Jupiter was good. Jupiter, I was at the convention in West Palm.
Beach, yeah.
Yeah, I got a
that was
nice. That
was a nice little park. Yeah,
I got a baseball there. It's the only time I ever got a baseball.
Yeah, we were sitting right behind home plate, and we had great seats, and all the guys piled down there, and we had a great time there.
Yeah, Trenton was very nice. I went down there one year for a Philadelphia regional, and Trenton was, the game was in Trenton. They'd alternate between the Vet and one of the minor league parks down there, and that was a very, very nice park, and so was Binghamton.
Yeah.
Because we used to go up to Cooperstown, and you would see a game in Oneonta, which was about 20 miles from Cooperstown, and we go to Cliff Cackline and his wife, and a bunch of us were up there, and then we went to Binghamton on the way back. And I know Whitey Ford pitched there, Rashi pitched there. A whole bunch of players. They came up to they were a Yankee farm team for years. They came up through Binghamton.
Yeah.
And but the most unusual was Pittsfield.
What was there? I don't know where that was.
It's in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. It's right off the, not too far off the New York State Thruway. And that ballpark is very, very old. And they built it so that if you're playing a day game, you had to stop the game for about half an hour because the field was, the hitters were hitting into the sun.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, I one of the Tiger programs I had, I read the story on when Tiger Stadium was built. Originally, it had the hitters facing the sun, and Cobb and Crawford complained about it, so they redid they turned the field around.
Oh, yeah.
I saw a couple of games in Wrigley, which I wasn't overly thrilled with.
You didn't like Wrigley?
Nah. It's just I saw a few games in Fenway, and the funny story is one time I went up with Evelyn and a few other people to Boston. This is in '95 when the strike was still going on. I see a couple of games in Fenway, and once with the convention, and a couple 1971. And we went up there to catch one of the last games in the old basketball game in the old Boston Garden, which was closing. So we decided to take a ride around Fenway, and we had something going on in there. So there's a guy selling tickets. I says, what the heck is going on here? They're having a beanpot tournament where they get the Boston College, Boston U, Harvard, Northeastern, and they have a baseball round robin. So I said, what are you charging for this? It's $3. So I went in. This is a weekday, and there's nobody there. And we're sitting in where the owners would sit in Fenway. And then we went all over after the thing ended, we went all over the place. I touched the wall in left field.
Mm-hmm.
It was an unbelievable thing. And I thought, with the Sabre convention, I would take tours of ballparks when they used to run those.
Yeah.
And in 1992, when we were in St. Louis, with the old ballpark, the second Bush Stadium. And there was a hot day, and they had artificial turf down there. And the tour guide says, well, we can get to 120 degrees on the field here. In fact, when the Casey Stengel went there for the 1966 All-Star game, the park had been open a couple of months or two. They asked Stengel what he thought about this beautiful new ballpark, and he says it holds the heat well.
Yeah.
But I was not bad. I saw one game, 2 games with Al in Comiskey Park, and the old Comiskey Park. And the first time we went there, it was a day game in 1970. They playing the Indians on a Saturday afternoon. Both teams were in last place in their divisions. And they said there were 4,000 people in the ballpark, but we estimated it was lucky if it was 2,000. And I saw a game of what they call the sell now or guaranteed rate, or whatever. They can't keep up with this stuff anymore. To me, it was very antiseptic. The new one. It had no character at all. I did say I've seen a bunch of games in Camden Yards.
Yeah, I've never seen a game there.
Well, they used to have Baltimore weekends down there. Baltimore May would always have a Sabre weekend down there. So went down there a bunch of times and saw a whole bunch of games there.
Yeah,
the one game I saw,
Memorial Stadium. That's the only time I ever went to a home game in Baltimore.
Yeah, I saw 7 games in the old Memorial Stadium, 6 of which were World Series games.
Yeah, I was there during this mid-season.
the only game
64. That was the year I was there. Yeah.
But the only game I saw in Washington was the last year of the expansion senators there. And this was in 1971, and we sit in the bleachers, and the ushers wouldn't let anybody downstairs, even though it was practically empty. They had a bad night. They had about 8,000 people there.
Yeah,
they were looking to get out. They were looking to get out,
Yeah.
And I saw a few games over the years in Connie Mack, which was a nice stadium to watch a ball game as far as I'm concerned, but it was a terrible neighborhood.
Yeah, I saw a game in Connie Mack, but not Connie Mack in Philadelphia. I saw West Palm Beach in the Florida State League. That was their home park, 1954. I saw a lot of games there that summer.
Oh wow!
Connie Mack Field was used by our high school team, Palm Beach High. We played there during after the exhibition games during the spring, prior to the team breaking camp and going north. And then it was used by West Palm Beach and the Florida State League. It was a nice little park. I loved going there, and they treated kids well, and you could move around pretty much at will because they very seldom had very much of a crowd. I'm not quite sure why. But they had a guy named Mac Meeks that summer who had some power. And they also had Whitey Platt, who was a hometown West Palm Beach guy who played for them toward the end of his minor league career. But my favorite minor league park I think I ever went to was in Durham when the Durham Bulls played there prior to moving up. I guess they're a AAA team now, aren't they?
Yeah.
At that time they were still single. I think single A, and this is back in the 90s. I spent a week in Durham and went to all the home games there, and that was great seats. Saw some good ball players coming up, and it really treated fans well. It was fun. So minor league games in general, and I enjoy. You ever go to the Long Island Ducks games?
Once.
Yeah, I went to several there when I was living in Long Island. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the Brooklyn Cyclones.
Yeah, I was there a few times also, yeah.
Nice park, nice little place. I love games there, too. They're really enjoyable.
The Staten Island Yankees, which I never went to. Yeah, they weren't. They were they were kicked out of the minor leagues, and the ballpark sat empty. But I think they're getting an independent league team in there this year.
Well, why were they kicked out?
Because they retracted. The baseball retracted about 40 minor league teams last year.
Oh wow!
In fact, I have a friend. You may have met him at one of the vintage. We used to come to the vintage sessions at Bethpage.
Yeah.
And his name was Doug Jacobs, and he and his wife live in Leesburg, Virginia now. And he was a big minor league fan, and there were two teams down there, one in Frederick and one in Bowie, Maryland. And
Lynchburg is also down there.
Yeah. They accessed those two teams, and he is so pissed off that when that happened. He says he'll never go to another baseball game in his life.
Yeah, it's a shame what happened in the minor leagues. Really,
they don't care. I'm sure the analytics are telling them that that they cost too much.
Yeah, no, growing up in Ohio, in the late 40s, there was the Ohio State League. There were teams in a lot of small towns, and now I don't even know. I guess there's still a team in Toledo. I hope there is. Anyway.
Oh yeah, the Buttheads. I saw a game there in 2006.
Columbus, of course, still has a team.
Yeah,
but Columbus is now the biggest city in Ohio, but nobody ever talks about moving there, and the hockey team is growing well, and it's a huge sports town. I don't understand why.
Well, you got Cleveland. I mean, there's no team in Buffalo because of Toronto, not major league team. And it's going to be real funny because the Toronto, Canada, unvaccinated people can't play in Toronto.
I know.
And I saw two games. I was at Jarry Park and the Olympic Stadium in Montreal. Jarry Park was an experience, like a high school field.
Yeah, I remember seeing pictures of it.
They had a pool behind them, and kids are throwing baseballs back and forth. This is 1971. Talking in French, and the other one, the second one, what they called the Big O, was shaped to me. It was shaped like a toilet bowl.
No, yeah.
And it was awful. I a couple of times I was in Toronto and saw a few games in the Sky Dome there, or what I call now Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, the Rogers Center.
Yeah, right.
But that was also it's like it's one of the, I think them and Tampa Bay are the only two that have artificial turf left.
Yeah, it's amazing how that they brought artificial turf even into baseball for as long and it lasted as long as it did.
Yeah, but because when my health problems started in 2012, I couldn't go to but now I can't go. I couldn't go to ball games when the convention was here, and I couldn't go to the ball game when we were in Pittsburgh because of my lack of mobility. And when these things started happening to me, they had conventions in Houston with the current stadium there, and the new Miami Park and the new Minnesota Park. And when they had the convention in 2009, they couldn't get a weekend. It was in Washington. They couldn't get a weekend in Washington. So instead of going to a game in Washington, a new ballpark there, they took us out to Camden Yards in Baltimore. And I never made it to the current park in Philadelphia either. So.
No, I never saw a game in Philly either. No. Yeah.
I saw quite a few in the vet. I used to go down there every at least once or twice a year.
Yeah. Well, you've been in a lot more ballparks than I have.
Wow.
And I was fortunate to get. I think I'm fortunate to have gotten to see Forbes, and fortunate to have gotten to see Crosley, and definitely fortunate to see Tiger Stadium and see multiple games in Tiger Stadium in Pittsburgh, and that one in Crosley in 1960 when I got a chance to see Hank Aaron. And I saw a game in Forbes in 47 between the Cardinals and the Pirates. This was the first year. That was the year Greenberg was there.
Yeah, they brought the fences in, right?
Yeah. And the game, there was very sparse crowd, probably only 6,000-7,000 people there. And Greenberg fouled Kiner in the batting order, so he had to pitch to Kiner. He couldn't get around him, and Ken Burkhardt started for the Cardinals, and who started for Pittsburgh? Roger Wolf. And by the third inning, both of them were gone. And I think I saw 10 home runs, 3 by Kiner, 2 by Greenberg. And Greenberg had, 5 plate appearances. They walked him 3 times. And, Whitey Kurowski had a couple of home runs. And I thought, wow, Forbes Field must be a home run park. And, of course, that year it was. And I didn't realize that was the first year that it was a home run park, because prior to then, when the old stadium, one of the most phenomenal feats to my mind, was Chuck Klein hitting 4 home runs to right field in Forbes Field, even though it was an extra inning game. To me, it's one of the most phenomenal feats in baseball.
Oh, 36 triples. Almost got 36 triples in 1912 playing there.
Yeah.
But
you can see the wide open space in the outfield.
Well, Bill Veeck wrote in Veckers and Rec that when he owned the Indians, that he would move the center field fence in and out depending on the opposition.
Yeah, he did that in 47.
Yeah. And they passed the rule against it.
Yeah.
So when the Pirates Frank Thomas told the story, when they traded Carter to the Cubs in mid-53, they had to leave it into the end of the season. I asked Frank Thomas when he was at the convention in Pittsburgh in 1995, what was your reaction when they pulled that out of there? He said he cried.
Sure he did. Yeah,
and the only footage I've ever seen it uses the background and the original Angels in the outfield.
Yeah.
And they were playing the Reds because I could see Ted Kluszewski playing first base for the Reds. You couldn't miss him.
No, you couldn't.
In the 70s and 80s, I was obsessed by this stuff. Going to ballparks and just when the 2 years the 2 years that the Yankees played in Shea Stadium during the renovation, I lived near Shea Stadium and I saw 60 games each year, both of the times there, both years there.
There's a question I've always wanted to ask you, and you really brought it to the forefront today when you said your father really didn't like baseball all that much. What is your interest in baseball?
Cards. I started with the cards. I started watching on TV. Right? Yeah. I started buying the cards. I get Yogi Berra cards. I said, who is a Yogi Berra? And I found out. I started watching toward the end of '51. I watched some of the World Series. I didn't see the Bobby Thompson game. I was going to school. They was starting these games early. And I started buying the cards, and then for my 9th or 10th birthday, they got me the original. My parents got me the original Turk and Thompson.
Yeah.
And I had the ability to absorb numbers and absorb names and all this stuff, and it was something that my parents couldn't take away from me.
Yeah, that was a great book. I got that for a Christmas present.
Yeah, I still have a copy of the original. And you look at the minor league pages; they list all these minor leagues going from AAA to Class D, and all these, so many minor leagues at that time.
Well, yeah, and in the late in 46, 47, 48, in those years there were like 50 minor leagues, and there were even the southern states had 3 or 4. They didn't have any Major League Baseball.
I know,
they had 3 or 4 minor leagues: the Georgia State League, the Georgia Florida League. There were all these crazy leagues.
The South Atlantic League, the Southern Association, yeah.
And there were guys who, they had long careers in some of these stadiums. They didn't want to leave it. They were town heroes. They were
when Ferris Fame was bought from the Seals by Connie Mack and the A's, he said he always said he had to take a cut.
He probably did because the Seals, Charlie Graham, Seals owner, really wanted to bring Major League Baseball to San Francisco right after the Second World War, and was prepping the city to get ready for it. It's going to happen, and it was a long time before it did. It took well over 15 years, more than 15 years.
Didn't they give the Coast League something called Open?
Yeah, it was open. It was open
because they were going to bring them in as a major league in this entity.
They wanted major league status. They didn't get it, but they did get open status, and they did get the rights of it. You couldn't pick off a player. You had to buy. Some of the teams still took farmed out players from major league teams. But by and large, most of the teams owned the players outright that they had. And if you wanted to buy Joe Brovia or somebody who had a big year in the Coast League, you had to pay the price. And there were a lot of guys who didn't want to leave the Coast League. They made their really long careers out there, and Brovia was one of them. He had a small taste of the major leagues late in his career.
Yeah, a lot of them because they came out.
They loved it out there. Johnny Lindell loved it out there.
Yeah, Dennis Snelling came out with a book on Pacific Coast League career records, for players, like a who's who. Yeah. And the Saber one year issued records of minor league stars. Look at some of these names in there, and they go in 1 year in the major leagues, the Oxec Hearts and the Speed Jollies and a bunch of others that they played 1 year or 2 years in the major leagues, and they had 20-year careers in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
Now you don't see any of that, and it was for quite a while. It was very hard to. Eddie Lopat, after he left the Yankees and the Orioles, he went to manage in the International League, managed Richmond.
Yeah.
And I didn't know until I read a history of the International League years ago that he even pitched for them. He won 11 games there his first year down there.
His player manager? Yeah.
Yeah. The only way people you ever saw post major league career records for is Hall of Famers. Players that made the old Splendors Daguerre types.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but it was fun. I saw games in the Pacific. I saw a game in Sacramento, I think, in 1959, when it was still, that was my first Pacific Coast League game, but I think it might have been the only one in the old Pacific Coast League, because it became a very bastardized version of the Pacific Coast League when it started taking teams from Texas and Utah and all the way.
Now they got Iowa and Louisiana, Des Moines and Louisiana and Omaha. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's what happened to the minor leagues. But I was fortunate. I did get to see games at AAA level in the American Association and International League parks and the Pacific Coast League parks. So, AAA was in Columbus when I was at Ohio State, and everybody on the Ohio State team got a free pass to all the Columbus home games. So we would go out there almost every night to see the Jets play, and the Jets were then a Pittsburgh farm team. So
Yeah,
I saw guys like Willie Stargell. I think I saw Stargell play there, and a couple other guys that ended up. Johnny Powers was a big. I think you remember Johnny Powers.
Yeah, he was Pirates for a short time. He was part of the trade when they sent Thomas to Cincinnati and got back Burgess, Hoke, and Haddix.
Yeah, he was a big gun for the Columbus Jets for a few years, and I got to see Luke Easter play in the Triple A ball, and the Havana team play. Those were great, a lot of fun.
Well, half of the old AA is in the major leagues. Milwaukee, well, if you count Minnesota, Minneapolis and St. Paul is 2.
Yeah.
And Kansas City, the other 4 are in the same division. And internationally, Louisville, Columbus, Toledo, and Indianapolis.
The Colorado team in Denver.
Yeah. When the A's moved to Kansas City, there used to be a league called the Western League, the Class A Western League.
Yeah.
That had Des Moines and Omaha and a few other places. And Denver was originally in that. And when the A's moved to Kansas City, the Yankees had the farm team there, and they moved into Denver, and Mark Frohnberger became a superstar down there. Yeah. Because of the thin air.
Yeah, I went to a Sunday doubleheader in Denver once, when it was a AAA team, and that was a lot of fun too. I'm thinking back, I realized I've been to more minor league parks than I realized, because I did see games in all the AAA minor leagues, and I never got to see a Southern Association, a Texas League game.
Yeah. I saw that one Southern Association game I mentioned before.
Yeah. But this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
All right, yeah, this has been a really terrific session.
I love it. I really enjoyed it once again. It's always a pleasure to do these things with you.
Yeah, the feeling is mutual.
Yeah, let's do it again soon.
Okay, you take care and give my regards to Marilyn.
Thanks, Al. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.